Today I'll be taking off a lecture on drawing and description of girdle bones as a part of undergraduate classes on practical in anthropology. Well, why do we need to draw and describe bones? You all know that human body has a number of bones which constitute the whole endoskeleton, and in order to identify the bones, just to know whether it belongs to man or some other animals, we have to know and describe the bone. In short, we are drawing and describing bones just to identify which bone is it and on which part of the skeleton it belongs to and which particular site it is for. So we have to draw and describe bone. Well, before you start drawing, you will have to select a particular size paper which is required for your practical notebook. So first of all, what you have to do, you draw the border of the paper where the drawing is to be made. Then after drawing the border, just on the right hand top corner, just below the border, you have to write the date on which particular day you are drawing. Along with it, in the middle portion, just below the border line, you have to write the title or the name of the bone. After that, you make a virtual division of the drawing sheet so that the various views of the bones can be drawn. If you are going to draw a clavicle, you can divide virtually the drawing sheet into two sections such that in one you can draw the superior view and on the other the inferior view. The drawing should be purely freehand drawing. However, it should be proportionate to the original bone. That means it should not be very bulky or it should not be very lengthy. And you can use slight shading various parts of the bone. Say as for example, we have various features like condyle, facets, trochlea, glenoid cavity, acetabulum, or maybe foramen. So for such features, you can make slight shading so that it is very clearly and distinctly visible. So after drawing, the next step is to level various parts of the bone. You should, as far as possible, use dotted line to indicate that specific part or portion of the bone, because solid line may be often confused as a part of the bone. Then after leveling various parts, you go to various views you have drawn and level the views. That means if you have drawn anterior view, then below the bone you write anterior view. Likewise, posterior view or profile view or superior view, inferior view, etc. Then after completing that, at the bottom right hand corner, just above the border line, you have to give a space for teacher's remark and teacher's signature. So this is how we can proceed towards the drawing of bones, and thereafter you have to describe various features of the bones. Now let us begin with drawing and description of pectoral girdle, or what we commonly call shoulder girdle. Shoulder girdle is composed of two different bones. One is clavicle. This is clavicle. The other bone forming pectoral girdle or shoulder girdle is scapula. This is scapula. You can just locate where is clavicle, it is here, and where is scapula, it is here. Well, let us start a systematic description now. As I told you, first of all, we have to start with which type of skeleton this clavicle is. So, this is an endoskeleton bone. We have two parts of skeleton. One is axial skeleton and another is appendicular skeleton. You see the skeleton here, this skull here, the ribs, the sternum, the vertebral column here, it forms the axis of the body. So, axial part of the skeleton. And now, the other part is appendicular skeleton. So, appendicular skeleton means the bones of extremities. So, the bones of this pectoral girdle, then upper arm, lower arm, hand, then pelvic girdle, excluding this part of the vertebral column, what we call sacrum, then thigh bone, then we have this tibia, this fibula, then bones of the foot. So, when we say appendicular bones, it simply means bone of the extremities, lower extremities and upper extremities. So, this clavicle, we are dealing with this clavicle. So, clavicle belongs to appendicular part of the skeleton, not axial part. Then again, on the basis of shape and size, we divide bones into different types. Long bone, short bone, flat bone, irregular bone, then sesamoid bone, like that. Now this is, what type of bone is it? It is a long bone. Why? Because it is having two end points and a shaft. Two end points and a shaft. So it is a long bone. Now let us come to the general shape. So if you just look, it looks like your italicized letter F. Now let us come to where can you locate this bone, or where is it situated in our human skeleton? It is situated just at the root of the neck, and this is in fact the only bone which is located or situated horizontally to the body. This extremity having somewhat flattened surface, this is called acromion end, and whereas the other side, it is more or less quadrangular. So this quadrangular shaped extremity is called sternal end. It articulates with the manubrium part of the sternum, and the other end, it is called acromion end. Why? Because it articulates with the acromion process of scapula. This whole bone can be divided into two parts. The lateral 1/3 is flattened from above downward, as I have told you, and it has two borders. The anterior one, which is concave, the back side will be therefore necessarily convex. On the back side, you see, this is the back side. On the back side, there is a deltoid tubercle, a prominent projection. This is deltoid tubercle. And below it, there is conoid tubercle. This is conoid tubercle. This one is conoid tubercle. And this one, deltoid tubercle. Now, the second part is the medial 2/3. Now, medial 2/3 is convex forward. The lateral 1/3 was concave. The medial 2/3 is convex forward. Now, this shaft is somewhat cylindrical in the medial part, 1/3, but in the lateral 2/3, as I told you, it is flattened. Now, let us come to identification of site to which the bone belongs to. Well, for identification of any bone regarding its site to which it belongs, we have to take into consideration of three important views: front, back, up, down, then towards the body, away from the body. That means medial, lateral. Now, this sternal end, as I told you, it should be medial and this should be lateral. So, we cannot keep this bone, or it cannot be fitted in our body like this, because if it's facing towards this, it is facing towards the body, which is anatomically wrong. So now you have to take another second point. Second point is which surface should be up and which surface should be down. Now, this surface, as I told you, this flattened surface, this should be up, this should be down. Then again, if we keep it like this, the same thing, this is up, this is down. So up and down will not do again. So front, back, up, down will not do. Now we have to see the other point. Lateral 1/3, there is a projection. See a projection here, slight projection. This is called conoid tubercle. And on the posterior side, facing downward, there is deltoid tubercle. So this deltoid tubercle should be on the back side, and that means on the posterior side and facing downward. Now when we keep like this, this deltoid tubercle is facing downward and back side. But when we keep it like this, now it is coming in front. Then in this position we cannot fit it. If you keep it like this, then you see everything is exactly fitting. So we very easily can identify that this clavicle belongs to the left side of the skeleton. So now let us take off scapula for systematic drawing and description. Now, well, this is the scapula bone. Well, this scapula is located on the dorsal back side of the shoulder. You just see the position here. This is first rib, this is second rib. It starts from here, second rib, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh. So this is located on the back side of the thorax. If you look at its shape, it is triangular. See, a triangular shape. Now you see this bone, what type of skeleton is it? I think you know it. It is endoskeleton because it is located inside the body, covered by subcutaneous tissue. That is why it is endoskeleton. And what part of skeleton? Appendicular part of skeleton, because it is a part of the limb bone. It is not an axial bone. So appendicular bone. Then from the shape, what type of bone is it? It's a flat bone, not a long bone. As you see here, it's a long bone, a clavicle, a femur, a long bone, humerus, a long bone. Now here it is having flat surface, so it is a flat bone. So type of skeleton, endoskeleton. Part of skeleton, appendicular part. Type of bone, flat bone. You should always keep it in mind while describing. Now, this scapula, if you just observe very carefully, this flat and somewhat concave portion is facing forward, at the same time facing medially like this. Medially like this. See, medially. Medially means towards the body, not away from the body. And at the same time, we cannot say that it is perfectly medial, it is also anterior. So forward and medial or anteromedially. This bone has 3 borders. The first border is superior border. It starts from here, it goes like this, like this. This is superior border. Then we have another border. This is another border. And this border, you see, it is facing away from the medial side. So you can call it lateral border. And the other one which starts from this angle is called superior angle. This is inferior angle, and from this superior angle to this inferior angle there is a border, and this border we call it medial border. The surface of scapula, it has 2 surfaces, 2 flat surfaces. One which is concave forward, and a bit medially. This is one surface, and the other one, when we look from the back side, it is convex. So this is another surface. So the concave surface, we call it costal surface. This is called costal surface. And the convex surface, we call it dorsal surface. The dorsal surface has a spine running here. This is called the spine. The spine divides the whole dorsal surface into supraspinous fossa and infraspinous fossa. Now, coming to angles, scapula has 3 angles. Superior border and medial border forms an angle. So this angle is called superior angle. Another angle, the angle formed by this lateral border and medial border, this angle is called inferior angle. And yet we have another angle. This angle is called lateral angle. See, processes of the scapula. It has 3 processes. One is spine. Spine is a process, and the terminal part of the spine is called projection. This projection is called acromion process. This is acromion process, and this is acromion end of clavicle. This is acromion end of clavicle, and this is acromion process. These two articulates. And another process is this curved projection. See, you can see this one. This is curved projection, and this curved projection we call it coracoid process. So, three processes: spine, acromion process, coracoid process. Below the coracoid process and posterior in position, there is a articular surface. This articular surface is called glenoid cavity. This glenoid cavity is meant for articulation with humerus. That means upper arm bone. Here is humerus, and this is glenoid cavity. So this is the articular surface where the head of the humerus articulates with, like this, and we can move freely. See the skeleton now. You can just see on the skeleton. This is head of the humerus, and here is glenoid cavity. So this glenoid cavity and head of humerus articulates, and as such the arm can be moved on any plane. We like up, down, back, like this. Now let us come to the identification of site, whether the given scapula is left scapula or right scapula. You see, when the bone is oriented in its anatomical position, the spine should be backward or should face backward. That means it should be posterior in position. Second point, the glenoid cavity should face laterally outside the body. It should not face inside. Then when I orient this scapula, I fit it on my body and observe. You see, now I can keep this spine on the back side and this glenoid cavity on the side of the body. See, like this, like this. Now it is facing back side, this is facing lateral side. Okay, so you can say this is right scapula. So you have to consider 3 points. I told you: back, front, lateral, medial, up, down. If you consider these 3 points, this scapula can be oriented only on this side. So naturally, this scapula is right scapula of human being. So this is how you draw and how you describe scapula. Now you have come to know how to draw and describe various bones of human body. Why are we drawing and describing human bones? The reasons are very simple. One is to identify the bone. Second is to know its anatomical position. Where is the bone located? How it articulates along with other bones. Then at the same time, by knowing drawing and description of bone, you can go for comparative anatomy or comparison of bones, structures of various parts of the bone of human beings with other animals, other mammalian animals or primate animals other than man. So as a student of anthropology, it is a must for you all to understand how to draw bones and describe bones.